My name is Bob Weber. I was born in 1931 in Wellsville, New York. I was raised in Wellsville, New York. I enlisted in the Navy of March of 1948 and was discharged in March of 1950. I enlisted in the Army in August of 1951 and was discharged in July 1953. I did my basic training in Kilmer, New Jersey in August of 1951. I finished basic in mid of October, and I went home on leave for a 15-day leave, and then I was assigned to Fort Knox, Kentucky. I was assigned to an outfit, a reserve outfit that had been recalled on duty, active duty. I was with that outfit about 3 months. I didn't see too much future there, and I went to the personnel office and volunteered to go to. I left the States in March aboard a ship, transport ship, to Japan. From Japan, I went to Incheon, Korea by plane. And in April, I joined the 17th Infantry Regiment. They were on line someplace north of Seoul, Korea. In April there, I arrived at the 17th. I was assigned to the 1st Battalion. And at the 1st Battalion, I was assigned to Baker Company. And when I joined Baker Company, they assigned me to the 2nd Platoon. And then the platoon assigned the people where they are a shortage of either riflemen or BAR people or machine gun. I was a rifleman. When I arrived at the 1st Battalion, I could hear artillery fire and grenade, or not grenades, but rocket launchers and stuff are going off. And you're actually a little confused or wondering what's going on, what's going to take place. And it's all new and strange. And from there, I was assigned to B Company. And I was transported by truck up to B Company headquarters. And from there, B Company commander assigned you to a platoon. And when you went to the platoon, they assigned you to a position, either a rifleman or BAR or machine gunner, whatever they were short of for the day. And they were on a move at that time. They was in an assault on hills. And I was assigned to the 2nd Platoon in the 2nd Squad as an infantryman, a rifleman. And they were in attack mode at that time. There was an assault on a hill when I joined them and was assigned to the 2nd Squad. And my squad leader just gave me the rifle and told me I was a rifleman and directed me towards the enemy positions. And we did succeed in taking that hill that afternoon. And on the assault of the hill, I said you could hear the rifle rounds whizzing by your head and around you. I says, but there was nobody, no casualty that afternoon. And the enemy more or less retreated from their position, and we took the hill with not too much resistance after that. Once we occupied the hill, they set up a defensive position, and each squad had a territory to defend. And they was assigned an area where you dug your foxhole with another individual. And this was your position. This was for a counterattack, which did not take place at this time on this hill. We occupied that hill approximately 3 days, and during the night, our artillery did shell the enemy, and you could see the shells bursting in the air and the ones hitting on the ground. And it was frightening. It was very new to you, you know. So, but you usually settle in pretty quick when something like this happens. We left that hill and then we started forward to another position. And we was going up a road. And we came upon a convoy of the enemy that was heading north. And they had been strafed and napalmed by our airplanes and our artillery. And there was quite a few dead North Koreans and artillery pieces that they did not get off the road in time. As we moved through the convoy, we did encounter some enemies that had been wounded and laying alongside the road, and some of them was treated and sent to the rear. I can remember my platoon leader, but I do not remember his name. But I do remember that he had the red hair and he had a red mustache like a handlebar. In September 1951, we took a hill, and I believe it was Pork Chop Hill. And Baker Company was assigned from the road up to where the T-ball or the bone went out on it. And we went into a defensive position. And my squad with a machine gun was on the outpost, assigned the outpost for that night. We got hit by the Chinese. We retreated back to our lines. I think it was September 3rd, 1951. I was assigned to an outpost along with one machine gun out of the 4th Squad. By this time, my head became the squad leader of the 2nd Squad of the 2nd Platoon. My rank was a sergeant. And at that night, after we was up on Pork Chop, I was assigned to an outpost. It's supposed to have been a listening outpost. And I had one machine gun with us at that time from the 4th Squad, where we set up a listening post. And we was hit that night. And John Stistic, which was with the machine gun at the time, he was an ammo bearer, he was hit in the arm. That night, it was probably around midnight, you could hear movement down in the valley as the Chinese were coming up the hill. And I believe it was just a patrol action out, maybe a couple squads. And they walked right up on our position. And as they was coming up the hill and we started firing at them, they were returning that fire, and then they had a bugle that they'd sounded off, and it must have been for their charge. And hearing that bugle at night is really weird and a lot different from what you imagine a firefight would be. Our position out there was supposed to be an listening post to warn the company when the attack was taking place. And after a brief firefight between us and the enemy, John Stistic was hit out there on that outpost in the arm. And we did manage to withdraw alive and with everybody. We didn't lose anybody. And we really wasn't hit too hard that night. We was hit, but we did repel the enemy. And finally, it started getting daylight, and the enemy did withdraw. But the next night, we sent another squad out to the same listening post that I had been on, and we was hit that night, and it was a full frontal attack. And when the firefight started, you could hear the bugle sounding off and the Chinese yelling. And that squad took a lot of casualties. There were several. That night we lost, I think, between 6 and 10 people that was killed, and we had probably that many or more wounded. When we went on Pork Chop Hill, we was overstrength in our platoon, and when we left, we was down to 50%. We took that many casualties. We took heavy casualties that night, and that night with these heavy casualties, like I said, we had about a 50% casualty rate that night, and there was one individual out of the machine gun squad. He was the squad leader, Terry, and he got hit, and they sent him down off the hill back to the aid station. And on the way back down, he encountered some Chinese. We were surrounded that night and didn't realize it at first. And he stepped off in the path and stepped on a landmine and was killed. And despite the casualties that we encountered that night and, being surrounded, we did hold that hill. And in the spring of 51, I remember, in the spring of 52, I do remember one evening, it was just about dusk, and my squad went on a patrol, just a probing patrol, to see what the strength of the enemy would be if you did do a night attack. And we got in the valley and started up the slope to their positions, and we encountered heavy artillery and mortar fire. And I was ordered to return back to the line and not go any further up the hill. And we did so without any casualties. And even today, you stop and think about the people that was with you, the men, and especially the ones that are not coming home that you left over there. But this is all life. So that's about it. Last year at Fort Benning, Georgia, I attended the 17th Infantry unit reunion. And at that time, I met Willis Harms and Thistic, which they both were in the machine gun squad, 4 squad. And it was the first time I'd seen him in 50 some odd years. And it was nice reacquainting with each another and talking about the old times. Usually you remember the good times more than you do than the bad times. And that's what you talk about.